Every night is the Rangers Journal night.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Rangers Journal Q&A. My name's Dylan. I'm joined tonight by Billy. Billy, how are we?
Good. Yeah, glad to be here. How's yourself?
I'm good, mate. I'm good, thanks. I'm good. And Dino, how are you, mate?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Good to be on again with you.
Aye, no doubt it'll be a good laugh. And to join us tonight, there he is.
I'm even on time and everything, Dino. Look at this. Fucking love it. Mate, it's like reindeers, mate. Unbelievable. See them once a year. This is my annual turn up on time. Also, because I knew Dylan was hosting, so I didn't want to fucking have him panicking that I wasn't here.
You're on. We're live, Mitch.
Oh, fantastic.
Right, you're card already.
Oh, fantastic. First F-bomb of the night dropped.
So, guys, it's just a wee Q&A. And I think we'll start with, me and Dino were on doing a pod the other night, and it was on Ancelotti about potentially being the new manager. Since then, it's grew arms and legs a wee bit. What do you guys think on it, Billy? I'll come to you first. What do you think, mate?
I don't know what everyone else is thinking. I've got to be honest. I'm not entirely sold, and actually, I'm more than that. I think that there's risk associated with any manager and any candidate coming in. But I used to work in recruitment, and the sort of rule was you would never get a person with the background that fitted the job spec. You'd always be looking for someone who'd done 70% of the job, and they come to the job because they think they can grow and get more money, and you take them on because you can do most of the job. And for me, when I was thinking about what I think a Rangers manager needs, ideally you've been a manager before. Doesn't need to be the case, but if you've not been a manager before, you want other sort of like key indicators, like someone who's a proven winner as a leader. So with Gerrard, I was wary about Gerrard coming in, but you could see that the guy was a winner. You know, he had been a figurehead. He was used to being the man. And even he almost didn't get enough time to land as a title. Ancelotti, he could turn out to be great. He could turn out to be the next Pep, but he's got zero experience as an actual manager. And it's all very well people kind of saying, well, he's worked at all these big clubs. He's only worked at clubs his dad's worked at. I'm sorry, if you were looking at that in any other industry and going, well, look at all these places he's worked. Oh, great, he's been at Everton when his dad was manager. He's been at Bayern when his dad was manager. He's been at Real for 4 years while his dad's manager. Maybe he's great, but he's not used to being the guy making the decisions. He's used to having one of the most successful managers in history as his boss, as his sounding board. And for me, I'm not saying he couldn't be a success, but I'm actually quite concerned because we've got no idea what he's like character-wise. We've got no idea if he can take the absolute nonsense show that is Scottish football and the media coverage and how everything's dissected. So I'd be quite hesitant about taking him on as manager because I know you look at all the candidates and none of them are looking great in terms of like being the ideal manager. In fact, in many ways, Philippe Clement was your ideal manager, a figurehead. He'd won leagues, he'd done it in Europe, he's coming from a similar league. And I will maintain, because no one can prove otherwise, that I think Clement was somewhat shafted. I think he was given a rebuild and then not given the tools to do it. So sadly, I think we had the right manager, but the wrong toolbox. And now I'm not sure we're going to have the right manager. So for me, just from a recruitment point of view, just from his background, just from the role he's done and not knowing if he can be a figurehead, I've got to be honest, I'm underwhelmed. Of all the candidates we've seen, he wouldn't be in my top 2 or 3, to be honest. I'd rather have an experienced manager. And I started off this whole process kind of thinking Steven Gerrard was really not my preferred option. And as the process has gone on, he's kind of started to look more appealing with it each passing week. So Anyway, I'm sure I'll get pummeled for that. But yeah, Ancelotti, I'm not a fan of this profile, to be honest.
Billy, I'm glad you're here, mate, because it's going to give us a wee bit of to and fro. Dino, I'm obviously I was talking to you the other night on the pod, and you're the exact opposite from what Billy. Try and change his mind for me.
No, it's not really for changing anybody's mind, because I think Billy raises a multitude of good points there that you've got to understand. There's a lot of facts in what he's saying. However, the way that the game's evolving, and got to understand that his dad has evolved with the game, and by the sounds of things, it was his son that was doing a lot of the work, you know, making decisions for him, but also influencing the decisions that Carlo made. And you know, Jose Mourinho was a coach and then went into management and was successful. Different format of the way things were 20 odd years ago, 30 years ago, if you think about it nearly. So yeah, I can understand the fear of this going Pete Tong, because we've been subjected to things going Pete Tong for far too long, haven't we? So I think you've just got to look at it as if this does go ahead, and you know, we've got to think that these guys coming in are investing heavily in the club and want to be the club getting its want to be successful whilst being in charge of the club. So you've got to obviously, you know, put faith in that these guys are not going to be coming in to you know, make a James Hunt of things and then leave with their tails between their legs. So
Making a lot of things, do you know?
So, so I'm looking at the way that you know, this guy's coming in, and he's although but he's not been the main man, but he's coming in with a pedigree of winning Champions Leagues, winning titles and trophies for Real Madrid, the biggest club in the world. Debatable, but I think most people will say they're the biggest club in the world. And that pressure of winning every game, and understanding that coming into a club like Rangers, you know, you've got to win every game. So I think him coming in and being in that environment at Real Madrid is actually going to stand him in good stead, because it's the same standards at Real Madrid as to what it is at Rangers, isn't it? So although they're bigger scale than Rangers, but in terms of the comparison, there's a good comparison to be made there. So yeah, I think it's a really, really good move, a bold move, but one I can only see things evolving and us being in a better place, and having been coaching a team that's had to adapt to their environment. You know, like you could say about getting somebody in like Gerrard. If I would remember rightly, Gerrard found it difficult to adapt to the opposition, and that's something that's needed at Rangers, because you're 2 games a week. You've got to change your tactics and change your approach to the games. You know, Europe on a Thursday and away to Kilmarnock on a Sunday. So I think, you know, everything that seems to be coming out of Davide Ancelotti's time as a coach is that his ability to show his dad that, you know, we change things up because of the opposition. So yeah, and I think as well, somebody said he was head of his, did you say on Tuesday, Dylan, that he was head of his class in UEFA or something?
He finished top of his class in his UEFA A licence. I think that was a few years ago now. And then I think he got asked, I don't know where it was, but Ancelotti had COVID, and he got asked to take the game, but it wasn't. He took it, but he wasn't allowed to officially take it because he didn't have his pro licence. And then he went and got that. I think he finished in the head of his class in that as well. Mitch, I'm coming to you, mate. Obviously,
Hi, handsome. Pleased to see you.
But listen, Billy makes great points. He's never been a manager before, and understand that. But when you look at even our greatest managers, like Billy referenced Gerrard there, Walter Smith, Graham Souness, and I didn't know this, but you've also got Bill Struth as well, who apparently that was his first managerial job. Does Billy's point about experience, does that matter so much in today's game?
No. And I'm going to preface it a bit more. Like, I'm not just going to flat out say, no, Billy, you're absolutely talking mince here. Like, I also work in
Right.
recruitment now. Like, I work in recruitment as we
Mm.
speak. And I actually think Ancelotti actually probably provides a lot more of what the modern day clubs are looking for, which is he's not technically going to be manager as such. He's the club head coach. So he has the network above him of sporting directors, which is Thelwell in our case, Coppin, making the important decisions on the incomings and outgoings. That's taken right out his hands. You concentrate in making our team of half-wits play half decent. Like, and I think when you've watched his influence, I've been quite fascinated with Ancelotti's career, like since he joined up with his dad. You don't get to stay at big clubs like Everton, Bayern, Real. Even if your dad's a gaffer, you don't get to stay in these jobs if you're mince at what you do. You know, Perez over at Real Madrid is not going to continue paying him however many Spanish millions that he's paying him if he's just sitting there putting the kettle on for his dad every day. Like when you watch over key games and stuff, Ancelotti Junior's influence on the touchline's grown, particularly the last couple of years, where his dad's kind of went. It's like almost watching an apprentice in their final year, where you go, I'm going to give you some of these big calls to make, like where he's advised them on, put this player on and take this player off, and tweak this. There was an incident in, I think it was the Spanish Cup, where Ancelotti had noticed that the opposition player had took 2 touches before striking the penalty, which resulted in the penalty having to go back and get retaken, which Real Madrid ended up, their keeper saved it. Yeah. And that came from his watchful eye of, no, I've watched him take 2 touches when I've seen it back in the monitor, and he made VAR go back and look at it. And I think the only question mark I have personally would be on the boy that he wants to bring in as his assistant, who's currently set piece coach stroke fitness coach. I don't know if I just get a wee bit too much of the old Mick Beale PTSD where he brought the PE teacher in with him. Like, that gave me a bit of the book, but I think obviously there's going to be plenty of club appointed coaches as well, like Shirai is going to be involved, because Shirai's not a Barry appointment, he's not a Clement appointment, he is a Rangers appointment. And I think having influences like that around him, players who, coaches that are seasoned at top end games and have a lot of experience, leads his experience as well. It does come from a winning mentality. You look at I take Everton to the side, but you have to look at them as a separate entity, because when Ancelotti came into the club at Everton, the club was an absolute basket case. Financially, there was a disconnect between support on the pitch. Everybody wanted Mojny out, and not the only club that's wanted a Mojny out in their time. But it was a whole situation, and that was a big pressure cooker to put. At the time, Ancelotti Jr. would have only been 30, 31 maybe, when he was put in that pressure cooker. And he survived, he thrived, and he done well. But his dad was offered, it was the Bayern job that he went to after Everton. But his dad was offered that. Thelwell actually fought to keep him. He wanted him as the Everton manager as opposed to Frank Lampard. That speaks volumes of how well he's thought of within football. For me personally, at least. But I think as Gordon touched on there in the comments there, I think whoever gets the job, there's going to be a portion of us that aren't happy about something. It's either going to be the name's not sexy enough, like Dino, or the name's not shiny enough, or the person's too new out the box, or the manager's bald. Sorry, Dylan. Or there's going to be something about the manager that somebody's going to sit there in a room somewhere and go, I don't like this. See, at the end of the day, sorry, but it's no us that are involved in appointing a manager. Whoever it is, we get in, sleeves up, we get behind them, and until they give us a reason not to get behind them. And I think it's a new era, it's a new dawn, let's just get behind whoever it is.
No, listen, I agree, and that's why I brought the comment up. I think Gordon's right. It's definitely exciting times now to be a Rangers fan, and it's a long time since we've probably all felt that. I think on Ancelotti, to give my take on it, I think I said on the podcast midweek the other night that one of the Everton players, Iwobi, was on a podcast talking about him, and he said that he takes the train, does the tactics. So for me, I almost look at it as if Ancelotti is more of the overseer, the man manager, who'll go and deal with the players. But in terms of a style of play, how they're going to face teams, etc., I think his boy takes a lot of the pressure off Carlo by doing all that on the pitch stuff. And I think if you're winning Champions League, he's won 2 Champions Leagues. If you're setting up a team, granted it's Real Madrid, they're the best team in the world, but if you're going to set them up to go and compete and win 2 Champions Leagues back to back, I think that's a massive plus, as opposed to someone like a Sean Dyche or keeping Barry Ferguson on, or even a Marco Rose. For me, I would rather him over someone like that. And I completely understand the fear of appointing an unknown manager who's cutting his teeth. Let me ask you this, just on a side note there. Would you be opposed to him, say, like Tony Kroos or Modric or Carvajal, they're at the end of their career, if they wanted to go into coaching or management, would you be opposed to him bringing one of them with him to join his backroom staff? Or would you be for it?
At this stage, yes. And the only reason behind that, and again, it's not any personal bias or nothing, it does go back to what Billy had mentioned at the start of, it's fine to have young super coach with great credentials and really, really well thought of in football. But he's had his dad as a sounding board. He needs somebody in his team that's been in the trenches, that's been to the glitzy nights in Europe, and they've seen it, felt it, done it. And I think genuinely he needs some experience beside him at that point. And at that point, he really probably shouldn't be allowed to pick his own backroom team. He should be allowed to pick 1 or 2 members, but the club should then be appointing 1 or 2 club coaches on top of Shirai that's there.
Billy, what about you, mate? Would you be opposed to it or would you be for it?
I'd actually, in some ways, one of those would, in a lot of ways, be closer to like a Gerrard type appointment as head coach, because you could actually say you're talking about someone who has been a winner. And I'm sorry to split hairs here, but I know that as assistant manager, you have technically won the Champions League. But for me, when I'm looking at like your CV and thinking who's actually been at the sharp end, who loses their job or who makes the decisions that will win you or not win it, it's the manager and it's the players. The assistant manager can be very important, but it is a different skill set. It is, how often have we seen people talk about, the assistant manager can be the one who's a bit more informal or friendly or collegiate or has a different role. And the manager's the one who has to be a bit more distant and make the really difficult decisions. And just to circle back briefly to it, on Ancelotti, I'm looking at his skill set. I'm looking at a guy who's used to fine-tuning elite level players at very top clubs, coming into a club where his remit is going to be getting youngish players and try and improve them to sell them on and squeeze the best out of SPFL level senior pros. That's a very different job, as is coming into a league where people are allowed to kick you up and down the pitch and will sit in a low block saying play through us, which, again, how many managers have come to Scotland and found this odd little league to be something that they really struggle with? Michael Beale for me is quite an interesting case study because he came in, he knew the league. He had a great plan. He knew who he wanted and he knew how he wanted to play. And he came in, and when it wasn't working, he panicked and all bets were off. And to me, what he did was he behaved like someone who hadn't been the manager before. He didn't know what to do when things weren't working. He didn't do the fine tuning or the tweaking. he didn't have the experience to deal with it when things start to go in a negative direction, which with an experienced manager, at least you have that. And again, for me, Ancelotti could be great. I'm not saying he can't be a success. I'm just looking at what he does day to day. And it's not the same job that we'd be doing day to day with Rangers. I think it is actually interesting to think what the setup's going to be, because that's what it is interesting. This young modern coach coming in, and maybe the sporting director doing more of the sort of work that we would associate with the manager. We're talking a lot about how he's dovetailed with his dad. We're kind of guessing to a certain extent, because his dad's still the one who picks up the big wages and makes the decisions. And I would just, for me, I just look at this and I go, if he's that much of a hot property, how come literally every single job has been with his dad's club? At some point, you'd want to break out and make a name for yourself, which he is talking about doing now. But if we were looking at this in any other industry, you'd be saying Nepo baby. You'd be going like, I'm sure he's good at what he does. I'm sure he is competent at what he does, and I'm sure he can fine-tune players at a top level. It's not the same as coming in to be the manager at a big club like Rangers. So I don't know the answer, and I'm not saying anybody's wrong. I'm just saying I had like maybe 3 criteria that I would look for in a new manager, and I think he's maybe kind of got half of one of them, whereas most of the candidates I would like to look at, I've got 2 out of 3, and that's as good as maybe you're going to get. So, sorry for circling back, but for me, if you're bringing in a Modric, that wouldn't happen. But if you're bringing in a Modric, at least he's used to being a guy who drags a team to victory, rather than a guy who makes suggestions that maybe they work and maybe they don't. And if they don't work, your dad's copping it.
Yeah, no, listen, I totally get that. So, and I understand what you're saying there. Like, Modric has been there and done it as a player, and so he's walked the walk and he can talk the talk. Maybe Ancelotti hasn't. Just to circle back, like you said there, I think it's different with Mick Beale, though, because he was the assistant under Gerrard and then came back as a manager. And also, I think Mick Beale's missing that, or for me, he was missing that aura. Now, not to say Ancelotti's got that aura, that's why I'm maybe thinking that he could bring someone with that. Do you know, what's your take on it, mate?
I'd be all for it, and I'll tell you why. Those players mentioned have got incredibly high levels of football IQ, and that is something that we severely lack. So that knowledge, that know-how of the game to educate our players, I would for it 100%. Would be a no-brainer for me doing something like that. And it was similarly to when we were all crying out for Defoe to come in as being our coach for the strikers. Similarly, like Defoe was in, and even in coaching, I think when people were asking for it, it's I'm using that as a comparison, because we were wanting him to come in and improve our strikers. He'd be wanting Modric or Kroos to come in and improve the ability of our players to do things differently, read the game better, do this, do that, be more technical on the ball, whatever, to come in and make them better. And I'd be all for it.
Do you know, you touch on strikers there, mate, and that takes us nicely into Dessers. Mitch, we all know your opinions on him, so we'll start with you, and then we'll just work our way backwards to what everybody else thinks.
I'm ready for my monthly fight with Dino in this one.
So obviously he scores 2 last night, becomes top
Never in doubt, mate.
I know he's your goal, but give us your take. Genuinely, do you want to keep him? Do you think he's the way forward? And take into account the new regime and the new manager we're going to have, maybe play a different style of football, who Dessers can't hold it up. Is he going to be the guy that goes for it? Or do you potentially strike when iron's hot and sell him and get your money back from him?
It's a 2-pronged question, so I'll give it the 2-prong answer it needs. So Dessers genuinely, I think, cops unnecessary dairy for being the guy that's always present, and I think we've got a hot young prospect there in Iggy. Iggy's a phenomenal talent and ceiling through the roof. But as a young player, he's going to have hot and cold spells where, you look at the spell just a few weeks ago where he went 11 or 12 games without a goal. It's going to happen because he's young, he's feeling his way about it, and also we've had managers put him here, there, and everywhere in his box of tricks. And I think when you look at the overall striker situation, the odd man out genuinely looks like Danilo at this point. And it's because you take his 2-year tenure with us, so he's been with us 2 seasons now. Missed a huge chunk of the first season. Missed chunks of this season again. And the guy that's ever present, never injured, always on his bike, is the guy that takes the dairy because it's the guy that starts every week because no one else is ready to. Whether that be manager selection issues or anybody else, Dessers has still banged in 50 goals in 2 seasons. And on top of that, 13 assists over the 2 seasons as well. Might be 14. I'll need to go back and get the stat men back out. But those numbers are genuinely quite difficult in the modern marketplace to replace. Those numbers. He's got 2 years left in his contract. He's quite clearly happy where he is. And he's played under multiple managers now because we like to play managerial merry-go-round. So he's played under, 4 different managers now since he's been here. He played under Beale, he's played under Barry, he's played under Clement, and I'm probably missing someone else somewhere along the line. But again, 4 different managers with 4 different sets of ideas of how he plays, and he's still continued to score goals in every system, so he clearly works in most systems. Is he frustrating, and could he make Dino bald by the end of next season? That's my next challenge. But genuinely though, as the rotating starter, not the guy that starts every week, but the rotating starter, as we go into quite a big summer in terms of expected players' ins and outs, I think sometimes better the devil you know, because we know what we're going to get with him. We're going to get the good, the bad, the in-between and the bipolar. We're going to get the all-weather Dessers, as I like to call it. But we know that realistically, statistically, it's been proven he will score over 20 goals over the course of a season. You would know what we're going to get with him, and he'll be worth the same next summer as he is this summer. And I'm just going to pretend I didn't read that, Curry. But no, I think I do think genuinely, it is a bit. I know it's a really long-winded answer to basically say I'd keep him, but on the provision that we did bring somebody else in, and I do think the odd man out currently is Danilo, and sometimes it's okay just to put your hands up as a player and a club and say this transfer's just not worked out, and I think that's where we're at. Personally, that's where I'm at with Danilo, and it's nothing personal with Danilo. I think he's a cracking player, but I think we've got 2 years worth of scar tissue with him in the team, and in 2 years he's probably been lucky if he's been fit for half a season. Well, maybe more than half a season. I might be being a little bit mean, but I do think right now all fingers point the other way, where you go, look at his experienced partner who cost £6 million. What return of investment have we had there?
Well, I listen, I get the argument, and part of me wouldn't be against keeping him as a rotation, and I know what you're saying with Danilo's injuries, etc. I think a lot of them have been contact injuries as well, which are a wee bit different from just getting injured by pulling something or having a recurring injury. The one against obviously his face, the one against Hearts where does his knee. For me, if Danilo plays him out of Dessers plays, he scores more goals than him. I think Danilo's our best striker, hands down. I know Egerman's upcoming. I think Danilo's technically our best striker. Billy, what about you, mate? Where do you land on Dessers?
I actually much more on Mitch's side than maybe you were going to expect. I've been sort of looking, the last 2 years, if you were to say where the problems in the team were, and you went through a list of things that you needed sorted, the 50-goal striker would not be in the top 3 or 4 for me. I get this argument that he's missed big chances in big games. He can also do what he did against Man United. He can turn into Marco van Basten for a couple of minutes, and it's quite nice to have that. I mean, the guy's highlight reel is astonishing. You know, his highlight reel make him look like a world class player, and his blooper reel would be, you know, like just 20 minutes of Van Vossen on a loop. So I understand that he's got that side to him, but it's kind of like Mitch was saying. Yeah, how do you replace, you know, for Rangers? How many strikers have we had in the last 20 odd years that have had this sort of return? The question for me is if we keep him. He said that he's not happy to play second fiddle. He doesn't want to be the backup striker. So it might be, like we were talking about there, Dessers, Egeman coming through and getting a replacement for Danilo. For me, there's also the question about, like, he scored 50 goals in a team that has often stunk the place out, certainly in terms of inconsistency. So there's a wee bit of like, this guy's got movement, he's got intelligence. Yep, sometimes he'll have a fresh air swipe or hit it at the goalkeeper 6 times in a row. But what could he do in a better team, in a better system, where he's not left sort of like you know, like scavenging or sort of feeding off scraps a lot of the time? So the thing with Dessers is that sort of enigma where if he was more consistent, he wouldn't be in Scotland. So this is, what do you want? Do you want a guy who can be world class and does get you 50 goals, or do you want someone? And I'm not sure I would agree with the notion that Danilo, if he played the same number of games, would have got more goals. I don't know. They're just, when he came in, he looked really good, and he was awfully unlucky with that facial injury. But since then, you know, whether he's unlucky or whether he's just lost a wee bit through never getting a run in the team, I would tend to think it might suit him in the club to find him a move in the summer. Dessers, I get it. I get this notion that we'll never win anything with Dessers as our number 9. Well, how about, could we win something with a better team, a better manager? Dessers is one of the front 2 strikers. Egeman improving next season, a better striker than Danilo coming in. Maybe, you know, you think about some of the goals he scored. So I'd be happy to keep Dessers. I'd be very happy to keep Dessers. Equally, if the manager decides he gets a big offer, the one thing I would disagree, I'm not sure in a year's time we get the same money for him, because in a year's time he's a year older. Maybe he hasn't as good a season. Maybe he's got an injury. So we don't know what we'd get in a year's time. But like, for what we would get now versus what we'd need to spend to replace the goals, I'd hold on to him, to be honest.
No, like I said, I don't think I would be opposed to keeping him, but he definitely wouldn't be starting for me. Dino, the floor is yours, mate.
Get rid. Tell you why. And Mitch, it's three managers he's played under. It was Beale signed him. He was Beale's marquee signing. It was Beale's man. I get that he scored 50 goals, but last season he missed more big chances than goals that he scored, right? So then I don't know what's the level down for that, half chances or decent chances. So I don't know what that number is, but it would have been high. So the chances that he gets in any striker for Rangers, we've been crap. We've been inconsistent. We didn't ken how to pass a ball, but we still create chances. And you need your striker to be clinical. You need, like, if he stays next season and doesn't become the first choice striker, he's then going to play half the minute of games, but it's still going to be the same Dessers, just half as bad and half as good. So the issues are still going to be there. Now, I know that he scored 50 goals and that's brilliant, but yet somebody asked the question, when's the last time a striker scored 20 goals? And I'm pretty sure Čolak scored a good amount of goals. We had somebody that was very,
Morelos in 2020.
Very good at finishing, but we get rid of Čolak for some bizarre reason. However, the point I'm making is, you're at Rangers, you're going to be given chances, and Egeman, Danilo playing the games that Dessers plays will score more goals than him. Simple as that. Now, he does score some absolute world days, but he does then have an absolutely stinking game. That, you know what, like, so as a Rangers player, you just can't be. You just can't be like that. We need to be setting our sights higher than that. And I know that's a narrative and understand it, but see this. So if he wasn't as inconsistent, we wouldn't be at Rangers. Like, our levels need to be higher than that. We need to be saying, well, do you know what? We're Rangers. We want players that aren't just coming here because they couldn't get a game. Do you know? We want players actually coming here who are good and will score you 25 goals a season. But over the course of the season, you're missing 10 chances that you could have. Do you know what I mean? Because every striker misses chances, but he could have had about 40 goals a season. Broke Henrik Larsson's record if he never missed as many chances. So I don't
Do you know what
think,
it sounds like, Dino? It sounds like you want to have your cake and eat it.
well, I'll be honest with you, I'd happily put money on, and if Igman was ever starting number 9 next season, he smashes Dessers out the park.
Right, so hear me out on that one though, right?
I know you were saying about Igman went through a bad spell. Igman's played a lot of the season out of position. The old cliche, square pegs, round holes. He's no winger, he's a centre forward. Play him in his right position, look what he does, right? So, you know, Igman's not going to be missing chances as much as that, I can assure you. And he's high. But Dessers, take the money and run. As you said, Billy, 31 year later, 32 year left on his contract. Take money and spend it on somebody else, or half it with half of towards a player or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, so aye, that's what I would do.
Also, just to point out, by the way, Dessers is in fact only 30, not 31 or 32. So he's
Just
still got 2 years.
Somebody said earlier on in the chat that he was 31, so I do apologise for taking that wrong. But however,
can I have him aging too close to me, mate? Like, then he starts getting grey hair and that, then it is over. But I think, right, just to kind of throw that at you, right, I'm not talking about hindering Iggy's development. I've said keep Dessers as the rotational striker who comes in and out the team. So, and you take names out of the equation, right? So, pretend you don't know who we're talking about. If I said to you, I've got a striker sitting on the bench right now who has scored against every top-level domestic opposition that he can score against, and our current striker, we'll say Iggy's having just an off day at the office, because that happens to every player. But I said to you, you've got an option to bring on a player that's scored against every team in the league. Would you not rather have that option to call upon when needed than have an untested option within the league? And the first person to suggest signing Shankland, I'm cutting their brakes.
Mitch, I understand what you're saying, right? And I think that obviously context is important here. Dessers, for me, right, has got so many goals. I think his movement's really good, right? He's always looking to go and beyond, but that's all he offers. That's it. If Clermont didn't play such direct long ball football, Dessers wouldn't score 20 goals. He's not a fox in the box like Denny Lowe, and he can't make his own sort of goal up. I don't think like Iggerman can. Like, the ball comes to the edge of the box, Iggerman takes a touch and buries it. Dessers isn't doing that. I know the one he scored at Man United was a worldie. He's capable of that once in a blue moon. For me, it's a deeper problem than just the sitters it misses. I don't think he can hold the ball up. He can't bring other players into play. He's not that Alfredo Morelos like striker who can do both. And I don't think we're going to play that type of football. I think he's been very lucky this season that we have played that type of football. It's kind of worked into his it's worked out for him, I should say. But again, like you said, he's going to be 31. I think they strike when the iron's hot on him. I think you take the money and thank him for what he's done, and you go and get a better. He's already, for me, hampering Hamza's stunting his progress because he's getting played out of position. Now,
but you'd argue that's a managerial problem, not a player problem. He can only play where his manager tells him to play. But if Barry turns around and tells him, you're starting up front, son, then he's got to start with his manager tells him.
But two things can be true at the same time. If Hamza's in there, who's to say he's not scoring any goals? Or he's not scoring more goals, or he's not scoring less goals? We don't know, because he's went with Dessers all the time. And my main point as well is, or my main reason I should say is, if a goalie goals but saves one, he gets dropped. Dessers is the same. He misses 3 or 4 chances. It's not like half chances. chances he should be doing better with. He should be scoring with at least, or hitting the target at least. I bet it gets played every game, and I think that's where, like, as a fan base, people who don't, that's where the mistake comes from, because he could be so much better, but because he does it once in a blue moon, everybody forgets about it. Because he's got 25 goals, everybody forgets about it. But listen, I wouldn't be bothered if he was a rotational striker, like you said, Mitch. But I don't think he's happy to stay and play that role. Do you know what I mean?
But that's a problem that can be addressed in January. Because the way I look at it is pragmatically, like, there is also only an infinite amount of money that we can spend. Genuinely, there is only so much money we can spend this summer, you know, without breaching PSR rules and everything else that comes with it. So, realistically, you say to yourself, keep him in the summer, we'll see how it goes. There is always a January window, literally 4 or 5 months down the road. If insert striker X comes in, does really well, fantastic, then the need to sell Dessers, the argument to sell Dessers is probably stronger at that point, to say, right, tell you what, you've helped us through that first 3-4 month transitional period. Player X has come in, he's nice and settled. Iggy's now coming into a bit of form now that he's 18 months as a senior now at this level. And as you say, look, we get it. You see yourself still getting back into the Nigerian international team. So you've got offers from X, Y, and Z that meet what we're looking for as a club. Go and have a chat with your agent, and thanks for your time at that point. I think people are, I don't want to say people are too quick to want to boot him out the door, because that's only Dino that wants to do that. Dino's tried to cut his brakes twice, he's told me. But I think player X, Ryan, is, I'll tell you what school he went to later on after you slide me 20 quid. But no, genuinely, I think, especially this first summer window, the money that we're going to have to spend, there is other more key priority areas that money needs to be spent right now, i.e. not having 4 basket cases at the back, not having a keeper who's got hands made of butter, and trying to find some goals from midfield. You know, because I think the way that we've played the last season and a half has been so overly reliant on the striking department, with minimal goals coming throughout the rest of the team. That's something that really needs to be addressed, like finding goals and athletes to put in the team. You don't need to be a worldie.
That's been a problem since Tav was scoring all the goals as well. Do you know what I mean? Rangers, that's been a problem that we've had for, I couldn't tell you how long. Only 1 or 2 players contribute to the amount of goals that we score. When you look across the city, there's 4 or 5 of them that are contributing. Just to go on to the point, guys, I don't know if you've seen it about the friendlies that have apparently been announced or leaked. I'll just touch on it here. So we've got provisional. We've got Red Bull Leipzig at home. No doubt Marco Rose will be the manager for that. We've got Leeds at Ellen Road and home to Club Bruges. What do you make on if it is the case on those the friendlies being announced?
The first one broke up there, Dylan. Who was the first friendly?
Red Bull Leipzig, mate.
Okay.
Billy, I'll go start with you, mate.
I mean, the interesting enough series of friendlies. Leeds, obviously there's the 49ers connection, and you're playing a club that's going to be in the EPL. So that, to be honest, like in any circumstances, that's quite a tasty looking friendly. You've obviously got the Battle of Britain history and all that stuff that goes along with it as well. So I think that looks quite exciting. Club Brugge, they play in the Champions League, so again, good level. You want to be playing clubs that are going to give you a European style game and maybe be a preparation for qualifiers. Similar with Red Bull Leipzig, actually, I think probably tempting fate here. But if you were choosing a Champions League, heavily inverted commas, team to play, the Red Bull Leipzig would be it, because they didn't get absolutely scudded throughout the Champions League this season. So, you'd actually be playing a team that, although they're of that level, they're definitely not anywhere near the sort of the top of that level. So I've got to be honest, I quite like the look of that. You've got like a British, a lot of years. I find it a wee bit frustrating that it seems quite scattergun what we do with the pre-season. This, we've got a game against a high-level British team, a couple of games against like decent-level European opposition. They all look like they'll serve a purpose in getting us ready for the league season and the Champions League qualifier. So to be honest, I haven't heard that. I'm quite happy about those.
Aye. Do you know what about you, mate? What's your take on it?
Aye, so Bruges, Leipzig and Leeds.
Yeah.
Aye, send it.
Tino's just getting his holiday map out now.
I've not actually got any holidays left, but never mind.
It's all right. I'll smuggle you in my suitcase, mate. I'll leave a cardboard you back here.
But no, that's is pretty much just echoing literally everything that Billy just said. It's just the fixtures I want to see us playing, put it that way. And obviously the change that's going to happen and new players coming in and exciting times. You want to see these players coming in and showing us, what they're capable of. I know it's only friendlies, but they're still playing to earn a spot in the team, aren't they? And I mean, we obviously don't know who we're going to be playing in the Champions League qualifiers, but we want to be as well prepared as possible. And given the rank friendlies of years gone by, this is a different level set of friendlies.
No, I agree with you. I think you're spot on with that, because I feel like in the past we've played teams lower than us, and it's been. I don't think. Maybe I could be wrong, but I don't think we'll sort of treat these games as a friendly. We'll treat them as like a warm up to our Champions League qualifiers, almost like you're saying, because of the quality of the teams. So similar to the way we treat it, like the West Ham, Newcastle, when we played Madrid. And I know it wasn't all the same season, but when we treated 8 games, it was like a real, like, we're going to go here and try and make an impact and try and beat this team and see where we stand. Mitch, how are you feeling on it?
I like it, mate. Like, obviously the Red Bull tie-ins there with Leipzig, and also that Red Bull tie-in doesn't go away either when it comes to Ancelotti Jr., just to put that out there. He was offered the Leipzig job last time it came up. It was apparently his dad pulled him aside and let him know, like, this is the last season of club football. I think Real Madrid and everybody behind the scenes knew this is what was going on. And his dad had asked him to stay on for a final year at club level with him. But that's where that all comes back around again with Red Bull, doesn't it? But I like it, good strong test for the players, I think, as well. Get a good quality opposition with Leeds, good quality opposition with Leipzig. Couldn't tell you an awful lot about how Bruges are playing at the moment. Genuinely couldn't. Don't watch any Belgian league unless they're in European competition or whatever, but I think good quality, I genuinely think they're good quality friendlies to have. Gordo, son, I will see you after this pod is finished, and yeah, we'll take that from there.
No, I think it's exciting, like these guys says. Probably, guys, just the last thing we'll touch on then. The game at the weekend, and I don't want to dive too much into it because we do have other pods coming up, pre-match stuff like that. But what is it hoping and what is expecting to see? Do you think it will be like a dead rubber for both teams? Who maybe like will we play Raskin in our main players, or will we just sort of let them sit on the bench and give the kids a run out? Do you think Hibs will do the same? Billy, I'll come back to you on that, mate.
I would have thought Hibs are going to have a proper go at us, to be honest, because
they've already got third.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, exactly that though. They're kind of like, how to put it, demob happy. So they've been coming into a run-in where they've been under pressure, and if Aberdeen hadn't been as rank as they've been the second half of the season, they'd have been in a real tussle. So, like, they probably envisaged a scenario where it was going to be a last-day shootout and they were going to need a result against us and the pressure was on. I wonder if it might... I mean, there's no way of knowing until we get to the game, but I wonder if they might come into this going, excellent. It's one of those rare opportunities where actually they could almost treat it as quite a relaxed experience where they can express themselves, to use the jargon, and have a right go at us and see if they can give their fans a result. For us, I just hope we turn up because, it's the last couple of games have been decent. But a lot of players now. I mean, Sherney was saying his goodbyes, so we know he's almost certainly off. And there's just that mentality question about players who are talking to agents and looking for a move. So you've got this weird mix of players, some of whom want to be there next season, some of whom know they don't want to be there next season. You've got the likes of Bailey Rice coming in and doing reasonably well. He'll probably get thrown in again. So, I'm not saying it's going to be like, remember the game just before Gerrard came in, was it 5-5, and you ended up with Lenny doing his aeroplane in the pitch embarrassingly and all that sort of nonsense. So I wouldn't be surprised if it ended up being quite a sort of high scoring draw, like a 3-3 or something like that, because I could see both sides don't have an awful lot to lose or gain. I could see Hibs trying to kind of want to kind of like finish at a high. And yeah, for me, I could see it being quite an entertaining game, to be honest.
What about you? Just thoughts on the game at the weekend and how we'll line up, maybe.
I'd just love to see him go out and play the youngsters. To be honest with you, Hibs will come. No, in fact, we'll go there with them because it's Ice Road. They'll be wanting to, put a marker down for next season, given the finished third, and do you know what I mean? So they will be hungry and determined to beat us. However, I think Barry should be looking at and play as many youngsters that are going to perhaps be here next season. Not necessarily saying first team regulars, but still going to be in the building next season. I think it's a great opportunity, and that's what I want. However, as somebody said in the chat there, that Fergie will play the same team because he still is optimistic that he has a chance of being in the dugout next season. So I can't see him changing anything. And like what Curry said, Cortez, if he doesn't get a sniff, is a major worry for the next manager coming in. Put it that way. Now, I think on that, Fergie does have his standards, and he was like that as a player. So he obviously doesn't feel that Cortez is up to the standards of Rangers, and the worry being that we're spending 4.5 million there or thereabouts, isn't it, on him in the summer. So that is a bit of a worry if he doesn't get a sniff at all. And I mean, did he not come on at the weekend there for 10 minutes or something?
No, he got on last night for 15, didn't he? 20 minutes last night.
That's what I meant. So that's the first time he's been involved in how long?
Since the Aberdeen game away.
Quite a while then.
Started that.
He got a full half at Aberdeen away.
He came off at half time, that's right. Aye. I mean,
he looked fine that afternoon.
Man.
Aye.
Sorry, the Aberdeen game he looked fine when he came on as well. Like he played all right. Like nobody was obviously a particularly shining light in the first half, but he certainly wasn't, the worst offender in the pitch.
Aye, so that's what I think will happen.
Mitch, what about you, mate? Just your final thoughts for the game at the weekend.
Another case of Barry's basket case, boys. So we'll see who turns up. I think probably I reckon we'll still keep Butland in goal. I reckon, again, Butland wasn't really a huge issue last night. The goal that came in, not really anything he could do about that. It's no one that you go, no one of these ones where you go, nah, Jack, you've had a howler here. But realistically, it was Tav and Souttar's fault. The two of them get themselves in 6s and 7s, couldn't remember how to play pin the tail on a donkey. I think I would like to see, much like everybody else, I'd like to see some of the youngsters come in for the start. I think it's going to be one of these really weird games where it's either going to have big last day of school vibes, or two teams are just going to go hell for leather at each other just for a laugh for the final game. So we could be in for either the world's worst 0-0, or we could be in for a 5-0. It could be anything in between. I do think I'd like to see Bailey Rice start a game. I'd like to see Finlay Curtis in the team. I'd like to see Cortez in the team. I'd like to get Nsiala in there as well at the back. These are some steady on Sun. I know I mentioned bringing on a young, exciting player there, but there's nothing to get that excited.
Sorry.
Like Dino's over there throwing champagne about the place and all sorts. Like, but I think genuinely the youngsters that we know for certain are here next year, put them on. Like, not being funny, but what's the worst that's going to happen? Because we've already seen the worst this season anyway. You know, and worst case scenario, we've got 5 subs to make. We can bring on a Diamande, we can bring on a Dessers just for, you know, like, we can bring on, you know, a Leon Balogun if we need to. We can bring on seasoned players if we need to. But for Christ's sake, these boys are never going to get the confidence to be in the first team if they're not given a chance to be in it. And I think that's what's stuck in my teeth when it comes to the Cortez situation. Because I know obviously we were talking about it off camera the other night. Barry had the audacity to turn around and question the boys' work ethic. Obviously after the game on Saturday or Sunday, whatever game we played at the weekend, where he said, you know, I'm not going to put players in the team just for the sake of it. It's all about how they train. And you're like, well, the boy's been fit for what, 2, maybe 3 months? We'll say properly fit for 2 months. You know, because you say that first 4 or 5 weeks back, he's probably about as fit as I am at that point after 8 months out. Well, that's maybe still pushing it a wee bit. But you say the boys would turn up to training every day, doing what's been asked of him, and he's not getting the reward at the end of it, which is minutes in the pitch. How do you keep your head up high as a young, hungry player who's been out after a big injury when you know the manager's still not going to put you in the team at the end of the day anyway? At that point, he would have every right to turn around and stick 2 fingers up at Barry and say, I tell you what, I'm not going to bust my arse for you because you're not going to play me anyway, so what's the point? And I'll just wait until the summer, get a proper pre-season under after the supply teachers left and went back to the radio booth, and we'll go back there and get a proper manager in, and I'll bust my backside for him because he will play me. And I think it's quite similar to Danilo's situation in that respect as well, where myself included, we've all been kind of guilty of going, where's Danilo? Like a game of where's Wally? But he's been on the pitch, ready, willing and able. But again, through whatever reasons, Barry's decided he's not putting them in, despite the fact, and it was the Fenerbahce extra time that really got me with Danilo. When Danilo was stripped, ready to come on, clearly was told he was coming on, and then he was sent back to go and sit back in the dugout because Tierney said, I'm all right to keep playing, despite the fact that he was running about like he was running on fart fumes at that point.
No, listen, I totally agree. And hopefully we see them, both of them, start at the weekend. Guys, I think that will do us for the night. Just thanks for all the people that are watching and putting in your comments. Don't forget to like it, guys, as well. It only takes a click of a button. Helps us out as well to keep doing this and keep bringing you content. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. Dino, I think you've got something you want to say, mate?
I just want to wish wee Brodie a happy 6th birthday from everybody at the Rangers Journal.
Good stuff, good stuff. Guys, listen, thanks very much for joining me tonight. And remember, every night is a Rangers Journal night. Thank you.